Asher, and I'm going to be doing a presentation on bonsai. Bonsai is the art of carefully pruning a tree and bending branches so that it looks older than it really is. You want to reduce the elements that are not wanted, and you want to reduce them or take them away to the most very basic elements, and it'll make the tree look older, and that's what you want. This is my bonsai, and it looks pretty old. Older than it really is, I bet. And it's like painting a picture, for example. You want, if the picture is a cardinal sitting on a tree, you wouldn't want to clutter the picture with a bunch of background stuff. And so, also, you want to try and so you want to do the same thing with your bonsai tree. You want to get rid of unneeded leaves and unneeded branches, and to bend the tree to your desire to make it look how you want it. I will now talk to you about where bonsai originated. It might seem like a Japanese art, but it actually originated in China as penjing or penzai. And the way it was brought over to Japan is so students went to China and they visited and they learned about penjing, and then they brought home what you might call Chinese bonsai, except it wasn't called that. So they brought home many penjing, and then they showed it to their friends and they started doing it, and then it spread. So then they originally also called it penjing, but they originally changed the name. At one point they changed the name to bonsai, which means pentasai.
Which means what? What does that mean?
I'm not sure. I got two different results. Now, penjing is the art of twisting. Well, it's the art of making a landscape with trees and rocks. And the way it's different, it's pretty similar to bonsai, but it's different because bonsai is more refined and it usually refers to one tree. But penjing refers to an entire landscape. So how is it viewed? How was bonsai traditionally viewed? Well, it was deeply connected with Zen Buddhism and spirituality, and it also helps people like it because it was a very neat art form, and I think it's really cool. But it also takes patience and time. And the way that people view it today really isn't that different. It's still deeply connected to Zen Buddhism. And the art of bonsai has flourished there like it has in no other country. They like the way it looks. And a fun fact is, if you receive a bonsai as a gift, it's supposed to mean good luck. Next, I'm going to show you how to care for your bonsai.
Can someone move the socks off the...
Actually, that's your socks and underwear. I told you to put them up later.
I'll have to edit this a little bit before I put it on the internet. Okay.
So
make sure you face me because I'm holding the camera. Nana can see it later. Sorry, Nana.
So you need a plant, and you're gonna need soil, water, and a good sunny place to put your bonsai. Or just a place that will get some sunlight, and you need to make sure that your bonsai tree doesn't die. So you need to take, I forgot what these are called.
Pliers?
Snippers. And you can use them to get rid of the branches that you don't want on your tree. So let's try and find a branch that we don't want.
How do you know you don't want it?
You think of it you begin with the end in mind. You think of how you want your bonsai tree to look like, and then you go and just take away you picture how the tree will look without it, and if you think it'll look good, then you just take it off.
Asher, we don't actually have to clip it now. You kind of
Yeah.
clipped it the way you want.
Yeah.
And I'd really feel more comfortable if you put those down. Thank you.
So I already have it clipped the way I wanted, but the way I have my bonsai tree is, it's not necessarily a root over a rock because the roots aren't over the rock. Technically, the trunk is over the rock, but it is exposed root style. It also has elongated, and this is going to be a formal cascade. No, informal cascade, sorry. And these are the leaves. You can clip off the leaves because you don't want to have too many leaves, or else the tree won't look very old. Because again, you want it to look older than it actually is.
How old is your tree?
We bought it from a store, so I don't really know, but I've only had it for not very long, like maybe 2 weeks. About 2 weeks. And it's been tripped. So the way that if you want to transplant your tree, this is how you do it. So you need to take your tree out of its original container, and you need to get the dirt off, and you need to get a big bucket of water or a container of water and put the tree in it and wash off all the dirt. Then you need to go and get another box or container to put your bonsai tree in, and then you put the tree in there and start packing dirt in and putting dirt in it. And what you do then is you have to make sure, and then you might want to leave it alone. Like, you don't really want to mess with it a whole lot because the tree will be will be like shocked from the transplant, and so if you mess with it too much, it can die.
So you need to give it some time to rest.
Yes. And I have a question. Questions to the end, please. And also, what you want to keep the soil nice and damp.
And what's
All right.
damp mean?
Thanks, Joe.
Damp,
Keep going. Yeah, damn.
damp means to keep the soil wet, but not necessarily dripping wet. So the soil is nice and damp. You want to put it in sunlight because you don't want it to die. And something cool is UV rays dwarf trees. So if your tree is exposed to a lot of sunlight or a bunch of UV rays, it'll stay smaller. And so does lack of water. A tree growing next to a stream will grow out bigger than one living in a desert or on a rocky mountain without any water. The reason is because if the tree doesn't get a lot of water, then its goal to expand out and upward just dies away, and so it tries to stay compact. Because if you have really big leaves and you're just everywhere like a big tree, then you're gonna get a lot more sunlight and you'll dry, and then you're gonna need a lot more water. But if you're a small tree, you won't need as much water because you'll be smaller, and so you'll be less exposed to the sun.
Okay, is there any other points you need to cover?
Questions, please.
My question was, if you want a branch to be thicker or thinner, or the trunk to be thicker or thinner, or if you want more leaves on a branch or a branch to be longer, you have to wait for that to naturally grow in.
Yeah, if you want, see this, you can tell that there's wire on this tree branch, right?
Why?
Show us.
Wires.
I can't get any closer. There's wire. Oop. Okay, we can see the wire. Yeah.
The wire is to help guide the tree branch and to grow in the direction that we want it to grow. If we want the tree branch to be longer, then we have to wait for it to grow, but we use wire to try and get it to go the way that we want.
If you want your trunk to be thicker, do you have to just start with a bush that has a naturally thicker trunk, or is there like the wire to bend into that to keep it from growing bigger?
I don't think you can change the thickness of the trunk, but however, there is a cool thing where there's a way if you can wrap the wire around the trunk, and it actually makes the trunk twist. So it won't be like a coil, but the tree trunk will twist.
I have a question.
Yes.
What sorts of trees can be used to make bonsai?
Pretty much, like there are lots of trees. This book has a list of good bonsai materials, but you can really do any tree.
What kind of tree did you use?
Bush.
Dwarf. I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I know, but we might have.
We
the
had
kind
the
of bush.
sign, and I thought I put it with it, but it's not there, so I don't know where it is. But we've got the.
Scroll to
But it was some kind of bush that you found at your local hardware
Yeah,
store.
it's just at Lowe's. It's a dwarf bush that is supposed to be for landscaping. But anyways, how did we select it? Do you remember? Did we pick the very first one we saw, or
No,
what did we
we
do?
carefully examined the ones to look for the trees that we want. Like ones that weren't too crazy, because it's kind of hard to get hard to trim the ones that are short and flat, rather than the ones that are more evenly even. So like if we got one that was in a pot, but then instead of being like more like this, it went like whoosh, we would have a hard
What
time.
about the trunk? What was characteristics of
So,
the trunk?
The
looked
trunk, we did a double trunk. So this tree has a double trunk style, because you can see there are two trunks.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wrapped them with coil to try and keep them from like splitting apart into like two separate trees. We want to keep them more close together. But we found one that had two trunks, and I thought, wow, that would be cool. We could have a double trunk style. And so we got this one. Also, another thing is that you want to look and see if it's doing healthy. You don't want to get a tree that's kind of wilty and looks like it's about to die. You need a hardy tree, so that way it can withstand your trimming. Also, we didn't have any, but it's good to use clay, and there's also like an ointment or something that you can put over where you cut a tree, so that way it doesn't get infected. But trees do get infected, so I recommend whenever you prune your tree, which means to cut, whenever you cut it, you should put that ointment or clay on it, so that way it doesn't get infected.
Does anybody else have a question?
I do.
Okay.
So once you start growing your tree, how long does it take to be that size?
Oh, this tree was already like that, but again, you can use lack of water or lots of UV to dwarf your tree to make it not grow as big.
I have.
You mean if you were going to grow it from a seed?
Yeah.
Oh, that you basically just plant the seed.
Depends on the type of
Yeah.
plant too.
If you have
Some
a little
grow faster
seed
than others.
and you wait, once it starts growing, if you want, you can like start bending the trunk, but you want to wait for a little bit, so that way you'll actually have a couple branches to start out from and a sturdy trunk, so it doesn't break.
So it'd be much harder to start with a seed.
Yes. However, there are some good qualities of having a seed. So if you have a seed, you can twist the trunk any way you like as it grows. So like this one already had a trunk going this way, and if we were to cut the trunk and try and make it go a different way, we would have lots of trouble doing that, because we would have cut off all the leaves that went with it.
Well, we angled it when
Yeah.
we planted it in the soil
But you can
to
also
get
do
it
that, yeah.
a more dramatic look.
All right. Anybody else have a question?
I do.
Good, Joe.
How do you keep your soil nice and wet?
Whenever it feels, you touch it. If it's nice and damp, then you don't water it. But if it feels dry, then you need to add some water to keep it down.
Like what? Like do we
I have another
fill a cup
question.
and
Wait.
put a little bit in it?
Ask that again.
Do we have a cup, fill it up with water, and put a little bit of the water in it?
I usually we spray it with a hose on a mist,
Yeah.
and you cover the whole thing. You let the whole thing soak
What would
in.
happen if I took a cup and just poured water straight in?
Well, it could wash the dirt. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it could wash the dirt out, or it could overflow, or it might just go out these two holes on the bottom into this tray.
Can you just put ice cubes in it to wet it? I've heard of some people putting ice cubes in their plants.
I think
instead of
those are
pouring
more for
water.
succulents, but you technically could, but it's better to keep the soil damp. Yes, Levi.
Why did you say more for succulents? Because succulents take moisture from the air.
But Mom had a succulent and she stuck an ice cube in it.
I did. That's because the people that gave me the succulent said to do that.
All right, Joe.
Oh, how is your tree not falling that way?
Well, because of the roots. The roots are anchored into the ground, so the tree isn't gonna fall over. And B, even if the tree started leaning too far over, there's a rock right here.
All right. Well, Asher, you did a really good job. I feel like I learned a lot about bonsai, so thank you.
I have one last question.
I have one more question, but it's for you guys.
Oh, you have a question for us? Okay.
What area do you think this tree would come from? What area do you think I tried to make this tree look like it was from?
What?
My backyard.
Area of what?
Of the world, like in mountains or a plain or
Oh.
by a river?
Pine forest.
Mountains.
Yes.
I've got a question.
Oh.
Yes.
Alright, what happens when a plant gets too big for a pot? You just move outside?
That's a good question.
When it gets too big for the pot, you can either transplant it into another pot, or
No, like
that's...
what is the size of a grown-up tree to choose out?
Oh, well, that doesn't happen because you keep the tree dwarfed by cutting it repeatedly and shaping it.
Daddy has a question.
Yeah,
No, we
no,
don't.
that's
Levi
Levi.
does.
Oh, I'm sorry. Levi has a question.
Whenever you asked us that question, I was thinking Southwestern Asia for some reason. I mean Russia.
Well,
No,
it's,
it's
I was picturing it
Okay.
from a mountain, like on
They have
a
mountains there.
mountain,
Czechoslovakia?
and then
Yeah,
go
I was
over
like-
off. And then, yeah, I was thinking of a mountain when I did this.
All right. Well, again, very good job, Asher. Thank you.
Two plugins. The more the merrier.